Welcome to Harry's Hook. I'm a journalist, big fan of boxing. I've written published articles on it. I also train and spar. With a destructive overhand left, Oleksandr Usyk crushed Daniel Dubois, silenced the doubters, and proved at 38 he's actually more dangerous than ever as a heavyweight. In today's video, I'm going to provide critical fight analysis, discuss how Usyk is evolving as a boxer, some potential next opponents, and what people are completely missing when they talk about Usyk's place in boxing history. In the second round, we saw a fatal mistake Dubois would keep making and that Usyk would keep capitalizing on. Dynamite steps forward with a 1-2, and Usyk hops back with a pendulum bounce. Dubois is way overextended, leaning his weight too far forward. His back foot is off the ground, leaving him completely vulnerable. Usyk counters with a lead hook and cross. Again here, Dubois is leading with the jab, stepping forward and onto Usyk's foot to try to keep him in range. He then steps to the advantageous outside angle and changes levels as he throws a right hand. But Usyk's footwork is too quick as he's already hopped back out of range and counters with a sharp cross, snapping Dubois' head back. Here Dubois jabs and backs Usyk up. He does a nice job parrying the cross, drops back avoiding Usyk's hook, takes a deep step in, changes levels, and fires the right. But Usyk slips it, and once again, Dubois is overextended, leaning forward, totally vulnerable to a massive counter cross, one that forced Dubois to halt his advance and retreat. Here, we see the beginning of the end. Usyk flashes a double jab and steps outside Dubois' lead foot as he fires a left. Dynamite thinks Usyk is throwing another one of his crosses and tries to parry with his right. But Usyk had launched an overhand around the guard. Dubois tries winging some rights, but Usyk, like in the first fight, kept a responsible guard and blocked with his left. Dubois, increasingly frustrated, backs Usyk to the corner where he again comes in behind the jab. Usyk steps back and lands a counter hook, but Dubois connects with a solid cross as Usyk had little space to work with. Dynamite launches another right that Usyk deflects. Dubois once again is overextended. Usyk counters with a left that partially lands and then fires a looping hook over Dubois' lead hand, and down he goes. He gets up and Usyk clips him with a lead hook. They reset and Oleksandr is flashing that lead hand, then fires a cross that Dubois tried to slip. Usyk is looking to again land the right hook, but sees Dubois is loading up for a big counter. So Usyk hops back with that pendulum bounce to avoid Dynamite's punch while throwing and missing his right hook, which perfectly loads up his weight for a devastating overhand left, knocking the mouthpiece and the will right out of Dubois. Usyk and his team learned from the prior battle and plan to use this knockout punch, which Usyk has named.
Hook is like this hook, and back Ivan. Yeah. It's Ukrainian name. Yeah, Ivan is like a big guy who living in a village and work in farm. He was a big guy, like a Cossack. What is your name? My name is Ivan. Yeah, it's a hard punch. Yeah, Ivan.
Usyk has not been regarded as a big puncher, more so as a boxer who accumulates damage through his combinations, accuracy, volume. He's used overhand lefts before, but it's just that in recent fights, he's really been loading up on it as a knockout punch. In his first battle against Fury, the Gypsy King, like Dubois, was overextending himself on his rights and squaring up. We saw Usyk use his lead hook more as a decoy here, but it also shifted his weight to set up a devastating left, just like against Dubois. And in the rematch against Fury, we saw Usyk fire some Ivans, but the Gypsy King was more defensively responsible and avoided getting caught again by a decisive blow. I believe Usyk over the past few fights has really settled into his weight, and as he's aged, he's floating less frequently than he used to, but stinging more as well. We learned at 38 he's being more judicious with his energy and therefore his footwork. So we're seeing less overt, voluminous movement and more subtle, precise movement. Against Dubois, it was calculated pendulum bounces that set up a brilliant knockout. After Usyk rests up with his family, what comes next? According to a quick poll on my channel, overwhelmingly fans wanted Joseph Parker, which makes sense. Parker has long deserved a title shot, and he's got boxing skills along with some pop. Tyson Fury has been calling out Usyk for a trilogy bout, but who really wants that? Oleksandr beat Fury twice, and there really is no controversy. We don't have unanswered questions. Turki Al-Sheikh has publicly stated he wants Usyk versus Moses Saitama, the 20-year-old British phenom with lightning-fast hands. Sure, that could be fun, and even though Saitama has shown maturity beyond his years, you've got to think that at just 12-0, this could be a bit too soon for him. Ajit Kabayel is the other name generating buzz. He's called out Usyk now, and after stopping Big Bang Zhang, he's got some momentum. I think Parker or Kabayel are the way to go here, or a mega fight of epic proportions against the one warrior we all know is the most dire threat to Usyk's title reign, Andy Ruiz. That being said, Usyk would be rightly favored against anyone. But now to widen the lens beyond the present, I've got to discuss Usyk's place in history and what so many fans and pundits are just not fully grasping. But first, if you enjoy this content, just do me one solid. Drop a like on this video for the algorithm. And if you want to stay updated on my latest analysis, commentary, live streams, subscribe to the channel. There's been a lot of headlines and talk of Usyk as a generational great, the best heavyweight since Lennox Lewis. Some are even putting him in the GOAT debate, right? Greatest of all time. Usyk is undoubtedly an all-time great. And those who want to have the GOAT debate, they can go ahead. But a ton of boxing fans and pundits are kind of missing the bigger picture. It may be a bit difficult for us non-Ukrainians to wrap our heads around, but Oleksandr Usyk and his greatness go well beyond boxing. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao are all-time greats. Same too with Canelo Alvarez, Naoya Inoue, and more. But Oleksandr Usyk is walking the path that very few athletes ever tread. When you consider history, Usyk has become transcendent. Let me explain. He is transcendent beyond boxing, and actually something even more than that. The very first fighter that immediately comes to mind for most when you think of a transcendent boxer is Muhammad Ali. One might also think about Jack Johnson, Joe Louis. But one could also consider Iron Mike Tyson, his performances, aura, impact on culture, as transcendent. What Usyk is, what Ali was, and still is to many, that Tyson is not, is a hero. Muhammad Ali and Oleksandr Usyk have moral missions. Ali spoke out against racism and the war in Vietnam, refused to be drafted, and was sentenced to prison after standing by his morals. Oleksandr Usyk defeated Anthony Joshua to become unified heavyweight champion in 2021. His home country of Ukraine was invaded by Russia in February 2022 and has been fighting for its sovereignty ever since. Usyk was in the UK when he found out, immediately boarded a plane to Poland, then drove to Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, and joined a territorial defense battalion. In March 2022, Ukraine's sports minister said Usyk could leave and return to boxing, have his training camp for the rematch against Anthony Joshua. But Oleksandr was reluctant. He says what convinced him to leave his country and return to boxing was when he visited wounded Ukrainian soldiers who urged him to fight for their nation in the ring. Usyk returned and defeated Joshua again.
Олександр Усик забирає її реванш. Олександр Усик виграє цей поєдинок.
He later fought the unbeaten Tyson Fury and became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Remember, Usyk had moved up from cruiserweight after clearing out the division, and as a heavyweight, he's routinely been outsized and outweighed by 30, 40, 50 pounds. He carries the weight of a nation at war whenever he steps in the ring, yet he overcomes the odds every time. The man is literally a morale booster. Ukrainian soldiers have talked about watching Usyk's fights on their phones from the front lines. A group of veterans traveled to Wembley to support him in the Dubois rematch. Oleksandr has wrapped himself not just in the Ukrainian flag, but in the traditional outfit of a Cossack warrior. His signature ring walk song by Vasil Zhadan is Bratya, or Brothers. It's a Ukrainian anthem. Here's some of the lyrics of the chorus I found on a translating website. But we are brothers like falcons. We grew up in a free land. We won't give our land to anyone. We would rather die as men. But it's too early for us to die. We have too much work today. Cossack beat the drum for life, and louder trumpeter play. Oleksandr is doing that work. Just before the Dubois rematch, I saw news that Usyk had launched a fundraiser to rebuild homes in his war-torn country, where he still lives, by the way. From what I can see, that love Usyk has for his people is reciprocated tenfold. He's a national hero. Americans, Brits, we may not fully get it, but Oleksandr Usyk and Muhammad Ali have a lot more in common than just their height and reach. They're both transcendent figures in boxing who, beyond that, are heroes with moral missions, who've spoken out against unjust wars and were willing to risk their careers and lives for what's right. Their impact, their meaning, stretch beyond the realm of sport. So, let's appreciate the extraordinary human Oleksandr Usyk for what he truly is. And that right there is Harry's Hook. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who do you want next for Oleksandr Usyk, and how do you see him in the history of boxing?